let us start. So the Rogatchover, his name was Rabbi Yosef Rosen, and my clicker's ignoring me. How did you do it? Oh, you moved the mouse and you did it? Now I got it. Okay, now it should work. Rabbi Yosef Rosen, if you don't read English, so we have it in Hebrew as well, aka also known as the Rogatchover Gaon, the genius. When he was younger, he was known as the Eloi of Rogatchover, which is more like a prodigy, another kind of genius. Sometimes he was called of Yossele Dinnerberger. So even I didn't know before researching this class. Apparently he hailed for spent some time in this place. He's also known as the Tzafas Paneach, named after his own work. They call him that, like the Tzemach Tzedek, the people on Chofetz Chaim, right? They're named after their sefer. So his works were mainly called Tzafas Paneach, which means the decipher of secrets. He's also called famously the Sara Torah, Prince of Torah in his time. It was definitely called that. His dates are 1858 to 1936. This is when he lives. We're going to have one more nickname, a really funny one, on a later slide. Okay? His background. So he was Hasidic and Chabad, but not Lubavitch. After the Tzemach Tzedek's passing, they had 6 sons who were survived, and Yehuda Leib, the Mario, started a group, a Hasidic movement of Chabad, but it was called Kapost. That was like the most famous, the longest lasting. There was Liadi, there was Nezhin, Sonaya. Yosef Yitzchak started in Avruch. That was borderline Chabad, Chagas. Then, of course, Reb Shmuel was Lubavitch, or Marash. And the oldest son, remember him? Baruch Shalom, he didn't start a Hasidic dynasty. He didn't become a Hasidic master like a Rebbe. And the Rebbe Tzemach Tzedek told him that it'll come back to you in 4 generations. Our Rebbe comes as a direct 4th generation descendant of the oldest son of the Tzemach Tzedek. And the Rebbe Marash was actually the youngest. Okay. So the Rogatchover was from a family of Kapos. His father and his father-in-law, his father was a Ephraim Fischel and Sarah Rosen. Their both families were more associated with the dynasty of Chabad slash Kapos, not Lubavitch. They all fizzled out around the late 1800s, early 1900s, and a lot of them either joined other movements, unfortunately, or they came back to Chabad, Lubavitch, in the times of the Rebbe Rasha, which is when the Rogatchover was. We'll see more about that. But this is where his family background was. Okay, his marriage I put first. So he was married to 2 sisters. His first wife was named Perla Gershfinkel, not at the same time. She became ill shortly after their wedding and passed away childless. What?
Nothing about when you were a kid?
I'm gonna do it. He got remarried to her sister. This is when he said that line. They asked him, like, what about the wedding? He requested that the people holding the stick should not be Amaratzim. That was important to him. Like, don't do it like as if he blamed maybe the wedding, the first wedding didn't work out because people were holding the sticks didn't know how to learn or something. I don't know. That's what he cared about. I just found that
His
interesting.
first wife died?
Yeah, his first wife died very quickly. No children, nothing. He married a sister. I didn't put this in the slide, but he also had an incident to his daughter. His daughter husband passed away, and he had to do chalitza. They died without children, and there were 2 brothers. It was a whole big case because unfortunately, the siblings of his daughter's husband. Well, one of them was like an apostate, and one was like a communist. And he said it's better to do the apostate, like renounced Judaism. That was his to do chalitza.
Mm.
The communist is also not. It was a whole thing. What would I didn't go into the whole thing, but it was an interesting uh, case that he dealt with. That was pretty personal. Okay, more about his family. His siblings, there was a Moshe, and there was a sister named Musia Rezel, who married, and his married name was Demichovsky, and there was a Sofa Spitz. He had two daughters. One was Rachel Citron, got married to Citron, and she was the one, I think, who had the Chalitza issue. And then there was Chana Goldfein. Chana Goldfein. Okay, so that's a little bit about his family. He was born in Rogatchover, Belarusia, over there somewhere. This is what a house in Rogatchover looks like now, I guess. Rogatchover. I just found something. Um, his early childhood was already as a youngster.
You said what year he was born?
Okay?
What year he was born?
Yeah, in the first slide. 1858.
Then could be
1858.
that would be tough race.
58 would be Yud. Yud Chai would be Chai. Tough Reish. Chai, yeah. It was in the lifetime of the Tzemach Tzedek, like we'll soon see. He was okay. It's not perfectly in order. His unusual capabilities were noticed at the age before 13, I should say. He was sent to study at 13. He already went to learn with Chaim Brisker, who was 5 years older than him. Chaim Brisker is one of the most famous, like Talmudic minds in the world of learning, the Soloveitchik, and under his father, the Beis Halevi, Yosef Soloveitchik. He subsequently had studied under Yeshua Leib Diskin, Maral Diskin, another famous rabbi who happened to be he learned with. These are great names in the world of learning. Another story about his childhood is he was a youngster. This is before Bar Mitzvah. I should put the story first. Um, his father sent him home to eat on Yom Kippur because he was whatever. He was 7, 8 years old and he wasn't really meant to fast. When he came back, his father asked him, "Nu, you wash, you bend. Did you say Yalav Yaveh on Yom Kippur?" So he said, "No." He's like, "Why not? It's a special day." It's like the whole reason why I'm benching now, or praying, everything now is chinuch. It's to prepare me in for when I get older. When I get older, I'm not planning to eat on Yom Kippur. So there's no reason to practice saying the Yahweh on Yom Kippur. That was his answer. Okay. In 1889, it means he's like 21 or 31. Who's doing the math? 58, 31. He assumed the rabbinate, how do you say it? Rabbinate of the Hasidic community in Vinsk. Because two communities, a lot of this happened often in big communities. They would have the Hasidic community would have one rabbi, and the like non-Hasidic would also have a rabbi. They got along very well. I'll introduce him soon. He served for decades as a rabbi in the Latvian city of Vinsk. It was renamed. I cannot even try to pronounce this. Anyone want to try? The Govpolis. Dvinsk became that because it was too hard to pronounce Dvinsk, so they changed it to Dagavavapolis or something. Okay. No, but that's how they actually write it that way. It's not a joke. They actually renamed it. Okay, that's this. In 1920s, during his lifetime, it changed the name. This is Latvia area. But he was in many years, so almost 50 years, he was the rabbi there. Um, because of his reputation for brilliance as well as incorruptible honesty, even Gentiles would go to him for litigation. His bezdin was very interesting. They wanted the rabbi. The other rabbi in the city was Rameir Simcha of Dvinsk, the Ar Sameach. The schools are named after. His work is Ar Sameach. He gave the rabbi, I think, by the wedding a gift of it. He was the rabbi of the non-Hasidic community, had a very warm and friendly relationship. Pretty respectful, which is almost surprising. Um, they once praised the Rogatchover and said he has a great grasp of Shas and memory. His unbelievable memory, he quotes everything from Shas. So he said, "Nah, what are you talking about? He doesn't have no good memory at all. He just reviews the whole Shas every day on the train on the way to work. So he just learned it that day. That's how he has it all fresh. Doesn't have a good memory." Okay, here's another nickname of his. They nicknamed him, you know, I don't know how this sounded, but they interviewed someone who said that they used to call him Ich hab nicht keine Zeit, ich hab nicht ich hab nicht Zeit for them. That's what they would call him because he was always saying that. He would send people to the Ohr Sameach. The questions were not stimulating enough. He'd like go to the other rabbi. He liked that to be like an interesting question, and he would sometimes the most like simple thing. He would find an interesting wrinkle to it, and he would take it on and write a whole responsa with pages of sources and stuff, but something you weren't even like looking for, but it caught his interest. It was always, they described him as always running, and wherever he went in a rush, like just very energized, racing back and forth when he would talk. He was very high energy. That's how everyone who knew him described. Okay, to get his smicha, rabbinic ordination, at one point, he would mainly try to look if the person's Yer Shemayim. That's why he would give Tamimim a lot. If they learn to type Tamimim, it would be very easy to get smicha from him. And he would test you on the laws of Torah reading. Shpiras Torah. Why? Because like, listen, you learn, I see you have Yer Shemayim, you'll look things up. But when there's a question, the Torah is open, and they have to know if he read the wrong thing, or if he showed him the wrong thing, or someone was called up. It's a dishonor for the Torah to have to go look things up then. So that you have to know before I can give you smicha. But other things you could look up. There was a similar rabbi used to do that with medical issues on Shabbos. He would ask them only those type of questions and say, listen, when someone's bleeding at Shabbos, you have to be confident and quick. And the rest I trust you to look things up. Okay. He was an unparalleled genius whose in-depth understanding of all Talmudic literature left the greatest scholars awestruck, often finding creative connection between random topics. So I put this ox story here. I told you the story with the baby who wasn't nursing, and the doctor, it was a early born baby, and it really was weak, and it didn't nurse the whole Shabbos, and it happened twice, and the doctors were confounded, and nobody could help, and they mentioned to the Rogatchover, he's like, oh, it's a Taisvis and Baba Kama. He threw out a reference, and they checked it up, and it talks about a wild animal that's trying to do tshuva. Wild animals also do tshuva, right? That it became established as a animal that attacked, because it did it multiple times. They're called a mu'id. And then it talks about different ways how it could do tshuva, in the sense, meaning it could restore its status of a normal animal. If it happens a few times, and it establishes a pattern that it controls itself now, so then it could change. So in that discussion, it talks about what if Shabbos is in the middle, and then it didn't behave, so you can't really count it. If it didn't do things, if it behaved uncharacteristically on a Shabbos, because it could be because everyone's dressed differently and there's a different atmosphere in the home, that it could unsettle the animal, and that you could attribute the change in the behavior to that, and therefore you cannot always count if it starts if one of the 3 days of Shabbos, you cannot use it. So they based on that, they say suggesting the students helped decipher what he was talking about, and they said that he probably means they should, dress regular on Shabbos and don't put perfumes or make like all this special decorations in the house and whatever they would do nice, and they tried it and the baby nursed. And so it's one example of hundreds of these type of things he was famous for.
Connection, why would the baby not want to be nursed?
But it was the animal, just like the animal would get very, like, it's afraid to do what it's not comfortable, so it's like more reserved. So just same thing. The baby was also very attracted by everything was very different on Shabbos, so it was a little bit nervous. It gets anxious. It was very sensitive to different things, like there was different, maybe the smells were different and the clothing was different. It was just so he pointed that out and he threw it out, and it saved the baby. So that's an example of how creative. Okay, he habitually, did I say that right? Demonstrated that many of the famous debates between the Talmudic sages have a singular thread and theme. He was famous for doing this as well, showing that they're all connected. And he would say this is also explains this debate and this debate. You throw a bunch of debates that seem to have no connection, and you go figure out how he says it's all tied to the same idea. That was classic as well. He became known far and wide for his better knowledge and caustic wit. He did not suffer inadequately lightly. He had no patience for people he felt didn't understand things properly. He was similarly reputed to really quote any rabbinic authorities post Maimonides. After the Rambam, he almost quoted nobody. and in general avoided recent rabbinic works that are chayim in favor of the Rishonim. Those preceding the late 15th century. Okay. While most rabbis regarded the Shulchan Aruch as a standard code of Jewish law and the first place to look when one had a halachic question, the Rogatchover had little use for it. He didn't like it. He only liked to go earlier, which is crazy, crazy extreme. But he would paskin and discuss with everybody things in the most creative ways from the Gemara and the Rambam, and he could get away with that because his conclusion, whatever he concluded, could argue soundly with anything that you would get from the Shulchan Aruch. Oh, because MS works out if you really know it. Okay, he made legal decisions based on the Babylonian and Jerusalem Talmud, Maimonides, and other medieval sources when necessary. His responses to queries of Jewish law are generally enigmatic and cryptic. He authored tens of thousands of responses on the Talmud and Jewish law. Many of them have been compiled in the set of volumes Sofas Paneach. That's what he called it. They say he might have made the world record of Chadas and Shuvas, over 50,000 responses. Everyone was trying to communicate with him, and he would write back sometimes of just a bunch of sources to answer that question usually, but you have a lot. His writings also been compiled as a commentary on the Rambam, the Talmud, and the Chumash, and Moreh Nevuchin, amongst other things. He wrote, they took from his letters, because you could go through his letters and extract all the times he referenced, and you have a commentary based on that, because it sheds light on how he understood the Rambam, why the Rambam says a certain thing by pointing out what it's connected to. The source of the name Sofas Paneach is Yosef. It was called Sofas Paneach by Pare, which some say is Egyptian or Hebrew. It means he expounds. Rashi says, the Farish at Svainis, he explains what's hidden. You have no match for this word any other time in Tanakh, the Rashi points out. But that's what it means. Safnas Paneach, cipher of secrets or mysteries. Okay, we mentioned before, it wasn't easy to receive rabbinic ordination from him, besides those things we said before, but there are some famous ones who did. The Rebbe is said to have, though I heard they didn't find it, but it's a famous thing that he did. Rabbi Mordechai Savitsky, Boston, Rabbi Zvi Olshwein, brother-in-law of Rabbi Shimon Shkar, and Rabbi Avram Eliyahu Plotkin, the author of Birurei Halachos. A copy of the actual smicha is included in that work. So that's what I found over here. Timimim I mentioned before. People who came from Tenchet Timimim, he was very relaxed or easier to get smicha from him. That's what it says. Because he said the main thing is they have Yiras Shamayim, they'll look things up. He would make sure they know the laws of Kriyas Torah, and that's it. Okay. Despite not being an official Lubavitcher Chassid, he maintained very close connections to Lubavitcher Chassidim and their Rebbes, Shalom Davesh Nes and Rabbi Yossi Yitzchak Shines. After Rasha's passing in 1920, he came to get Rabbi Rayat Smicha, that's what he called it, declaring the Jewish people needed a Nasi. He also ruled that he has to recover from his illness. Rabbi Paltil, I think, says that he coined the term that they call them Nasi. They call our Rebbe the Nasi. He thinks it came from this little anecdote. He called the Frierdiker Rebbe the Nasi. He said, Klal Yisrael needs a Nasi, which literally means like a prince, or it meant also the Jewish leader at the times of the Mishnah. We said a lot of some of his.
When do you have time to take all these pictures?
It's the same three, if you notice. So Safas Paneach, here's a little more of an overview what was published during his lifetime. Safas Paneach is his most magnus opus on the Rambam. Two-volume commentary on the Rambam. Safas Paneach al Torah is 5-volume commentary on the 5 books. On Shas, a 4-volume, but not all the tractates that we have, covering tractates Baba Kama, Baba Metzia, not Baba Basra, Makis and Hedin and Harayas. Safas Paneach, Shalos and Shuvas.
Everything for public now.
And then a new one, yeah, he called them all, because his name was Yosef, and Yosef was named that. He took that on. He also wrote something on Moreh Nevuchin we mentioned before. And Michtevei Torah is just made a whole sefer out of his correspondence back and forth with another great rabbi, Rabbi Mordechai Kalina, who they had a lot of back and forth. And they made a whole sefer out of just those, and it's all sources as well. The remainder of his surviving writings appeared in the United States and Israel many years after his death. His manuscripts were smuggled out of Latvia in the form of microphotographs sent via mail to the Safran family in the Bronx at the outbreak of World War II by his successor, Yisrael Alter Saffron Fox, who was Fuchs is the family, and that's he sent it to his own family in the Bronx.
Fuchs is it was a successor
He took over he became the Rabbi Rogatchover for a few years until World War II. You'll soon see. He was murdered by the Nazis, who remained alive, but he stayed there. They were both murdered by the Nazis. It says here, oh yeah, it says going to say soon. No. He was in 1936. His daughter also. That's it. His daughter went there together with the successor. They were collecting his manuscripts and trying to salvage it. They didn't rush to print it. It was very difficult. It was very hard. And they had all these books and bindings of his that were never published. And they start during World War II, when things got really heated and dangerous and so on. They realized that they tried to risk their lives. Literally, she went back from Israel to and she didn't make it out alive, but she was able to send copies with people who were smuggling out and things like, and we have a lot of it because of that. His daughter Rachel had come to Tvinson in London to help preserve her father's manuscripts. Both were murdered in the Holocaust. So we have the writings of the Rogatchover with Siddur Nefesh. So, okay, some of them were printed by Kasher, famous, who did the Torah Shlema. Several of them were also published by a special institution, Machan Sofis Paneach, that they dedicated themselves to publishing his writings. And Machan Amar in Yerushalayim is now publishing the remaining manuscripts. It's still going on. Okay, you often need to be a Talmudic scholar just to understand all his references in this question when he would mention it. Said that the Rogatchover found it hard to respect any of his lesser contemporaries. Once sent a letter to a less than stellar contemporary. The guy he didn't appreciate the person's question. So curiously, the references they could not figure out. He sent them a bunch of sources, not seem to have anything to do with the point raised by the correspondent, until someone pointed out that all of the sources referred to an Amma Aretz everywhere in the Talmud. It says someone's an ignoramus. That was the type of letter he sent this guy. Another creative thing that happened here. When the planes came out, everyone said you do tefillas haderech, but he said no. You don't do tefillas haderech when you fly in a plane. Why?
No.
That's what the Rogatchover said. Oh no.
No, Rabbi, hang up. I'll hang up quick.
Maybe another 15 minutes. I'm in the middle of a class. I'm sorry. We're actually being recorded, so I'm really sorry. Okay. No way. I'm going to cut it out if you're good. Okay. The Rogatchover approached the question from left field. Look. I just brought this as an example, or rather from a very unrelated Talmudic passage. In Chulin 139, it says about sending the mother bird before taking its young. You heard of that, Shiloh Hakan, right?
Yeah,
So this discussion focused on the word derech in the verse. It says if a bird's nest chances before you on the way, it uses the word derech. That's what the pasuk says in Devarim, chapter 22. So, of course, the word derech is used elsewhere in the Torah by the sea, because in Yeshaya it says the way traveling on the sea uses the word derech. So the Talmud derives from that also when you cross the sea, it's called going on the derech. So if you find a nest at sea somehow, a bird's nest fell into the sea or whatever, and that's where you found it. I don't know if any birds actually make it in the sea, even water birds on the surface of the sea, but if you found it, okay, you have to send the mother bird away. It still applies. That's what the Talmud says. However, the Talmud also concludes that if you find a bird's nest in the ear, for example, if it's being carried by a flying bird, it's moving its nest from one place to another, the Talmud says there's no obligation, because the word derech is not used with reference to the sky anywhere. This is what the Talmud says. So he says, there's no derech in the sky. You can't say tefillas haderech for that. That's how for him it was like open Gemara. Clearly, the Talmud says that the traveling in the sky is not called derech. It's not considered a way because you don't have to return the mother bird. You don't have to send away the mother bird. So therefore, in a plane, by the way, halach we do say it. We don't. This is not accepted. But again, he was more. It was overridden by most rabbis who said it's not about that, well, because it's called tefillas haderech, but it's about the situation that you travel in. Okay. He famously studied Torah on both Tisha B'Av and when he was in mourning, which is forbidden according to Halacha. It was too painful for him. When asked about this, the Rogatchover replied that he was happy to be punished for the study of Torah because it was worth it. That's how he said it. His prayers would take only a few minutes. He would not even put back his tefillin and wrap it up. It would be a sin to waste so much time. That's what he said. They did not have to wait for him after Amida ever. They once asked him in the shul, like, it's one of the ways we honor the rabbi. It's like usually everyone finishes and we wait for the rabbi to start the repetition, but you always finish before everybody. So it's like, what do you want me to do? It's like maybe before you take the 3 steps back by the end, you could wait a little bit. It's like, I'm already doing that. that's how his mind worked fast. Let's say that. Let's put it that way. When he was summoned to lead his daughter to the chuppah, he grudgingly closed his Rambam, apologized to his sefer, while explaining that he would be back shortly, and muttered, "Tsar Gidol Banim." It's a famous phrase that people say, "Oh, it's the pain of raising children." Tsar Gidol Banim. So he was schlepped to take his daughter. So he had to take his daughter to a chuppah. He had to close the Rambam. And did I mention that before? It's coming up later that he considered the Rambam his teacher, and he would talk to the Sefer very often. He was that kind of mad scientist type, a very personal teacher of his. Okay. Oh yeah, that's the next slide. I should flip this. The Rogatchover considered the Rambam to be his teacher. He would often talk to his Rambam Sefer, and he said this famous thing: since the Talmud only 2.5 people knew how to actually learn, he said the Rambam, the Alter Rebbe, and he's the half. That's what he said. He said, since the Talmud, he once said something like that only 2.5 people know how to learn. The Rambam, the Alter Rebbe, and he's a half. That's what he is. He's quoted as saying. Okay?
Which half?
He's a half. 2.5 people know how to learn.
So which half does he know?
No, he's a half. He knows, you could say like, he doesn't know how to fully learn. No.
No, like
Not having. He doesn't fully know how to learn. He knows how to learn halfway. Okay? He doesn't know how to learn as much as the Rambam and but no other people don't even. They're not even in the level. Oh, okay. So it's not that kind of hack. Semach's humor. We're not ready for it. Okay, one must bear in mind that in order to speak with the Rogatchover, even this are quotes about worldly matters, you have to be allowed. In the course of the most basic conversation, he would throw into seftas and mechiltas and sifras and other books, leaving people dizzy. The eyes of the Gaon. Every issue in life can be solved with an open Yerushalmi. Open to him, that is, yeah? The Rogatchover waved his hand in a dismissive way and said, the Vilna Gaon had all-encompassing knowledge. He took, okay, this is an interesting quote, but that's not all. That's not all there is to knowing Gemara. In a shtetl near me, the Gaon said, lived a Melamed, a small Rebbe, a teacher of children. He had a torn hat. He knew how to learn better than the Vilna Gaon, 1,000 times more. He was not so respectful of others. He said, yeah, it's not just to be a computer to be able to quote things. You have to really understand things properly. And he didn't have a high opinion of most of even the recent rabbis in previous generations. All right. Everyone wonders about his pictures, his long hair. So here's what I found about it. At the age of 5, he was taken by his father to see the Tzemach Tzedek, who instructed him to learn Masechtas Nazir. I'm assuming Mishnayos. I hope not Gemara. That would be crazy. Maybe it was. There are those who posit. How do you say it? Posit that he took this as a sort of Nazirus and therefore never cut his hair. But again, people say it. Other theories are that he did not want to uncover his head since he would not be able to learn Torah, and that or that it hurt to cut his hair. People have said these things, but no one really knows. I think the one with he didn't want to uncover his head, so he can't think Torah and learn Torah would be too hard for him, so he just didn't take haircuts. He had to take off a yarmulke for that. So for him, it wasn't worth it. That's what it seems. I don't know.
Why would you turn it to the side like this?
You have to see the back. There's other pictures. Okay. His muttering, this is during his final illness. He was overheard muttering, where are the other masters of the Torah? Where are Rashi and Tosfos? Where are the Ran and me? What have I done? Why did I not put effort into understanding and expounding upon the words? Because of this, then I'm being punished. Because he basically focused on Rambam. He was silent for a bit, and then a spirit of calm settled over him. He said, it's all worth it. He declared suddenly, if I'm suffering because of my connection and bond to the Rambam, I accept the pain joyously. This is how he would ramble when he was sick by the end of it. Okay. Yeah. So, I don't know who this is, but Nayach Zvulini, related the following. Every day I would enter his house and study and talk to the Rogatchover. One day the Rogatchover told me that Nachman Beilik had come to him and they had discussed various matters. He's a famous writer in the bottom over here. The Rogatchover then gave him a copy of his book, the Tosfos Vanecha, at which point Beilik left. Bialik was blown away. Bialik later wrote that from the mind of the Rogatchover, you could carve out two Einsteins. So the Rogatchover quipped when he heard that, and from the leftover crumbs, you could create many, many Bialiks. When they told him what he said. So the Rogatchover, this is also from Bialik, I think. He was not only considered a guy ignorant, he would have been considered the same guy in previous generations. Rogatchover is nowadays something unique, a rare mechanism which only one exists, one of a kind. The Rogatchover needs to be considered a spiritual national treasure. When the Sefer came out, Safas Paneach, I should put this earlier, they said it's called Safas Paneach, the Cipher of Secrets or Mysteries, but he said it should have been called Yosef Rosen, which means increases mysteries and secrets, because it's so confusing and it needs so much deciphering. So his actual name is Yosef Rosen, which means to add secrets. And Safas Paneach means to clarify the mysteries and explain it. So you see, he was also pretty clever. Well, he was the other rabbi in the town, huh? Okay, Megala. So Yosef Rosen is Megala is increasing the opposite. It means make more secrets. Okay. He lived for a time in Petersburg, so I threw in a picture of that. But that was more by the end of he came when the Peter Rebbe was there, he was living there as well. There's some stories with the Tmimim visiting him there. One time he met the Tmimim there and he's like, "Why are you here?" So they answered him. Some of them they answered at once. One of them said, come to the Rebbe, to Petersburg. The other one said, he came to Petersburg to the Rebbe. She's like, which one is it? Did you come to the Petersburg to the Rebbe, or did you come to the Rebbe to Petersburg? There's 17 nafkaminas in halacha. I'll tell you, start you off with a few of them, and you go find the rest. If you're chayiv in this, if you're chayiv in sukkah, if you're chayiv exempt from this, if you're all different things. If you came mainly to visit your Rebbe, then it's, Petersburg's on the side, and you could be exempt from many mitzvahs. That's how he would respond. That's how he would react. Here's what his writing looked like. Not so clear, but you get the idea. And he was into graphology. Good luck. But it's pretty wild.
Basically, you couldn't even open your mouth around it without getting.
Here's a sample. I took a sample. I already did some sources with you, but I put a sample of what it looks like, even when it's published. They try to bring. It's basically
mentally disabled just from fighting with the right camera not being very great.
I think he had. I think I got the impression that if you didn't have a high opinion of yourself, and he was nice with you and patient, but if you were acting like and you think gave him the impression that you feel very confident in your knowledge, he sort of felt necessary to put you in your place. But if you were like humble and like not like realize it's like seeding that you don't know how to learn, then he was very nice and very pleasant. And they say when he spoke, it was very easy to understand it. But when he wrote, it wasn't clear. It was like not clear. It just looked like this. Everything is just sources and abbreviations and like I in this, and and he was just like very brief. Okay, here's some books about him. I have both of these at home actually.
You have? Can I see the left one? Can you bring it?
Yes, they're gonna remind me nicely after class.
Isn't that one the right one is like out of print?
Maybe. I have this also. I was using it one day when I started to prepare it. I was looking through. I could find so much treasure too. Anyway, here's a letter correspondence between him and the Rebbe, which they're selling for 50,000 or something, for 30,000. Written the 15th of Tavis, 1925. From the Rebbe was in Dnepropetrovsk, Yekaterinoslav. The Rogatchover going was in Rogatchover, whatever, in Vinsk, and they have 3 pages on a single photo sheet, few lines that are written in Russian, a detailed halachic explanation. They have a lot of back and forth. His passing was on Thursday, March 5th, at Titus Esther, actually, 13 Nevada. So its connection to
March 5th?
Yeah, but that year was following an unsuccessful surgery. He's buried in the Vinsk. And we end off